You only need 180 days to become rich. Robert Kiyosaki. Imagine being caught in a fire and the exit is right behind a door, but you don't open it because you think it's closed. That's how most people manage their money, paralyzed by false beliefs. And if I told you that you can start investing with $0, it's not luck, it's not magic, it's strategy. Today, I'm going to reveal a method that schools don't teach and that could be the key to get out of that financial fire in which many don't even know they're trapped. But be careful, what you're about to hear can make you uncomfortable. The question is, are you smart to see the door, or are you going to keep looking at the flames? I know what you were thinking. This sounds good, but in my case, it's different. I don't have money, I don't have contacts, and opportunities are not for me. How many times have you repeated yourself that thought is precisely what keeps you stagnant? It hurts looking at the bank account and seeing zeros, receiving a salary that barely enough, or even worse, feeling that you work like crazy to enrich others while your dreams are extinguished. And while you doubt, others are already taking opportunities that you ignore. Have you ever seen someone who started after you and now goes ahead? Steps is not luck, it's action. Every day that passes, you keep at the same point, while others take risks, they learn, and move forward. How much longer are you going to wait? The opportunities don't wait for you to be ready, they go with those who dare. The real problem is not the lack of money, it's the way they taught you to think about it. They raised us to work for money, not to make money work for us. They told us to save penny for penny, but never how to take advantage of the opportunities that can multiply the little we have. And the worst thing is that many don't even question this. But today, you're going to see things from another perspective. What you're about to discover will not only challenge what you thought could be the spark that changes your financial reality. Most are still trapped because they believe that the system is made to protect them. But what if that same system prefers that you continue to ignore what you are about to learn? Now imagine what it would be like not to have to worry about making ends meet, saying if there are opportunities without thinking if you can afford them. Sounds far away? It is not. A few years ago, I met a man named Mario. Mario was no different from you or me. He had his goals, his dreams, and yes, also his problems. What made him special was not his intelligence or his experience, but a spark that many lose with time: curiosity. Mario did not like to resign himself to what others told him was his reality. One afternoon, while walking through his neighborhood, he saw something curious, a small business that was always full, but he didn't understand why it did not seem to offer anything special, but people came and went constantly. Intrigued, he decided to go in and talk to the owner. To his surprise, the man behind the counter explained that his business had started with an investment that didn't come out of his pocket, but from other people's money. Mario thought about that conversation for days, how someone without capital of his own had managed to build something so successful. That small conversation was the beginning of something big. Mario began to investigate, read, and learn everything he could about how to use opportunities in his favor, even without having initial resources. In the process, he realized something that would change his life forever. The problem was not the lack of money, but the lack of strategy. He didn't need to be rich to begin with. He needed to know where to start. What Mario discovered not only allowed him to get ahead, but it opened the doors to a world he never imagined. A world where money stopped being an obstacle. That sounds good, but I don't have the knowledge or the connections to do something like that. But here's the interesting thing. Not even Mario had them when he started. Everything he needed was an idea, a method, and the decision to do something different. You want to know what his first move was on that chessboard? That's what we're going to explore in this video. But before we get there, it's important that you understand something fundamental. It's not about working harder or waiting for a lucky break. It's about learning the rules that the rich use to win, rules that no one teaches you. I won't waste your time. With this video, I will reveal to you right away what is that first step, the strategy, the method, the best-kept secret, whatever you want to call it. The way to start investing without having money is by using OPM. OPM means investing using other people's money. This is a technique that I have personally applied for much of my life to raise capital, especially in the beginning when I did not have my own resources. Before showing you how to apply this strategy, I want you to pay attention to something crucial. There are many myths and beliefs that could be sabotaging your path towards financial freedom without you realizing it. That's why I'm going to debunk 3 of the most common paradigms that hold most people back when they try to start investing without money. I assure you that if you identify with any of them, this may be the jolt you need to change your perspective once and for all. Myth 1. I need to have money to start investing. The reality is that you believe you need money to start investing is one of the most common mistakes and also one of the most limiting. The truth is that money is not the starting point. What you really need is creativity, strategy, and the willingness to act. Many of the great fortunes were not born from bulging bank accounts, but from powerful ideas backed by the ability to connect with the right people. To think that you have to save for years before taking the first step only delays you. Opportunities are out there, and money too. What is really missing are people willing to look for them and present proposals that others cannot ignore. Myth 2. Using other people's money is risky and unethical. The real risk is in doing nothing and remaining trapped in the same financial situation. Using other people's money is not taking advantage, it's creating alliances where all parties win. Investors look for opportunities to grow their capital, and if you have a solid idea and a well-structured plan, you're solving a problem for them. The paradigm that asking for support is a sign of weakness is totally false. Great entrepreneurs and visionaries have always worked in collaborative networks. It's not about manipulating, it's about offering value in exchange for trust. Myth 3. Only people with important contacts or titles can get investors. Most opportunities are not won with diplomas hanging on the wall, but with determination and the ability to communicate ideas in a clear way. You believe that connections are inherited. Every conversation is built, every event, every message you send can open you a door. Many people who today move millions started knocking on doors that others were afraid to open. Don't underestimate the power of asking for help or the value of your current network. Sometimes the person who connects you with an investor is much closer than you think. In my book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Rich Dad always repeated me a phrase that marked my life. Never say you can't afford it. For him, those words were a symbol of defeat, a reflection of a mentality that closes doors before even trying to open them. He taught me that the losers are not poor because they lack money, but because they don't have the ability or desire to look for ways to raise money. On the other hand, my educated father had a completely different mindset. I remember he used to say, "I would be rich if I didn't have children." Every time I heard it, something in me stirred. His reasoning was based on excuses, not solutions. He depended on his academic degree as a guarantee of stability, believing that his education ensured his future. My rich dad, on the other hand, showed me something very different. It wasn't a matter of how much you knew in academic terms, but of how open you were to looking for alternatives, to thinking differently, to acting like someone who sees possibilities where others see limits. The most powerful thing I learned from him was this: anyone can raise capital if they put their mind to it. But most people never do it because no one teaches them. Schools prepare us to seek stability, to pursue secure jobs and pensions, not to build wealth or to break the chains of financial dependence.
That's why phrases like "I don't have money" or "I can't pay for it" are not only limiting, they're mental barriers that we keep repeating. The real key is to change the question. Instead of resigning yourself, start asking yourself how I can achieve it by doing it. Opening your mind to this possibility, you'll discover that everything you ever thought unattainable is actually much closer than you imagine. Rich Dad used to say that poverty wasn't a lack of money, but a lack of ideas. When he explained this to me, this challenged me to look at every problem as an opportunity in disguise. If you don't have money, what you really need is not for someone to give you more, but for someone to teach you how to create more. This change in mindset was what allowed me to see the possibilities instead of the obstacles, and it's what can change your life too. Today, I want you to think about this. Every time you say to yourself, "I can't afford it," it's closing a door before you even try to go through it. But what if that same phrase was the key to finding new solutions? True wealth starts when you decide that you won't take no as an answer, and instead, you start looking for a way to understand it. That's the most valuable lesson I learned, and the one that transformed my mind and life forever. Most of the projects I have started have not been with my own money. This approach has not only allowed me to achieve things that seemed impossible, but it has forced me to think creatively, to educate myself constantly, and to surround myself with people who had already achieved what I was looking for. Talking to rich people and learning from their strategies showed me that the real problem is never the lack of money, but the lack of ideas and actions. Now, at 72 years old, I can say with certainty that I have never needed to have money to create great opportunities. I always find a way to get it. Nowadays, there are modern options, such as crowdfunding, that open even more doors to raise capital. Although I don't have much experience with these platforms, I know that the right mindset makes all the difference. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, "I can't afford it." But as I learned from Rich Dad, that's a poverty mindset that only perpetuates scarcity. Changing this perspective is the first step towards a new financial reality. One of my first experiences on this path was buying a small condo on Maui Beach for 18,000 pesos. I didn't use a single penny of my own money. It was a 100% debt-financed transaction. The interesting thing is that even having the money to pay for it, I decided not to use it. I preferred to raise it because I understood that using my own resources would be too easy and would not teach me anything new. That experience was the first of many that showed me that money is not a barrier, but a tool, and that is often within the reach of those who dare to look for it. Throughout my life, I've managed to raise hundreds of millions of dollars following this approach, not because I was smarter, stronger, or luckier than others, but because I learned to see money as a means and not an end. This mindset allowed me to take calculated risks, seize opportunities that others ignored, and build a life where I don't feel limited by what I have in the bank. Let me tell you something important. No matter where you are now, maybe you feel like you're starting from scratch, or that you don't have the connections, knowledge, or confidence to do something great. But believe me, what really matters is your willingness to think differently and look for the answers. If I could start my journey with nothing but ideas and an open mind, you can too. It all starts with a decision. Will you keep saying, "I can't afford it," or will you start wondering, "How can I do it?" Not always everything goes as one plans. In 1973, I bought my first property, but mistakes were also part of the way. One of the most expensive was when I started a business of nylon wallets and Velcro. We thought it would be a resounding success, but they did not sell. We had invested 600,000 pesos, of which 200,000 pesos were from my educated father. Things did not go as we expected, and it was a difficult blow to assimilate. However, in the midst of the chaos, an opportunity arose. Adapting to the situation, creating an innovative product, the shoe pocket. This little invention saved us from bankruptcy when it appeared in Playboy magazine, boosting our sales in a way we could never have imagined. This episode taught me something invaluable. Mistakes, even the most expensive ones, are not the end of the road. In fact, they can be the beginning of something bigger. I learned that stupidity, when you analyze it and confront it, can transform you into someone smarter. Every stumble, every failure contains a lesson waiting to be discovered, and that lesson is what will take you to the next level. If you're starting out, my top advice is this: invest in what you love. When you do something you really enjoy, I don't even see it as a job. It feels like a game where financial status is your scorecard. For me, that's been business, real estate, gold, and silver. But this is not just about making money, it's about finding a purpose in what you do. Unfortunately, our schools don't prepare us for this.
They don't teach us about financial statements or how to build wealth strategically. You may think you need to have everything clear before you start, but let me tell you something. No one starts knowing everything. Important is not avoiding failures. Failures teach you more about yourself and how the world works than any theoretical lesson. So ask yourself, what is it that you really love? Because when you invest your energy in something you're passionate about, you don't just build wealth, you build a life full of purpose and satisfaction. At the end of the day, the key is to take action. Many people are paralyzed by fear of failing or because they feel like they don't know enough. But here's the truth. If you wait until you're fully prepared, you'll never start. Mistakes aren't the enemy. Inaction is. Now that you understand the importance of changing your mindset and taking advantage of other people's money, it's time for you to take the next step. Maybe you think, this sounds good, but how do I apply it in my real life? Here's where a clear and simple strategy comes into play that anyone can use, even if you are starting from scratch. You don't need to be an expert or have great resources. The only thing you need is a willingness to learn and act. Below, I will share with you a practical method that I have applied throughout my life and that will allow you to start investing without using your own money. Strategy to start investing with no money. First, identify a solid opportunity. Look for an investment with proven potential, such as real estate, local businesses, or innovative projects. You don't need to be an expert. Focus on identifying something tangible with clear benefits. Second, create a clear plan. Develop a simple, straightforward outline that explains how the investment will generate returns. Highlight the benefits for all parties involved and structure a timeline for repaying capital or distributing profits. Third, find partners. Approach people with resources, such as family, friends, or local entrepreneurs interested in diversifying their income. Focus on those who are looking for investment opportunities but don't have the time or knowledge to manage them. Fourth, make an irresistible offer. Propose a model of profit sharing or interest for your initial investment. Example, if you invest 10,000 pesos in this project, you will receive a 20% return in the next 12 months in addition to recovering your initial capital. Fifth, keep your commitments. Trust is your most valuable asset. Keep your partners informed and follow through on the terms you promised. This will not only guarantee the success of this investment, but it will also open doors for future projects. Using other people's money is not only a financial skill, it's an art that requires effort, creativity, and intelligence. But most importantly, it requires a profound change in your way of thinking. This strategy has been the key for many people to achieve what others think impossible. It's not about luck or privileges, it's about understanding that money is not a barrier, but a tool that you can learn to manage in your favor. The next time you face a financial limit, stop for a moment. Instead of telling yourself, I can't afford it, turn it into a question that has the power to transform your reality. How can I achieve it? It's in that question where the real solutions are found. The rich have no more opportunities than others, simply have a mindset that allows them to see what others do not. They don't limit themselves. Seek, explore, create. This simple change in mindset can make the difference between staying where you are or moving towards where you always dreamed of being. Every time you say to yourself, I can't, is closing a door without even trying to cross it.
But when you ask yourself, how can I do it? You start to see options, paths, solutions that didn't seem to exist before. What separates the rich from the poor? It's not how much money they have in the bank, it's how they think in the face of challenges. The rich understand that failures are not final, but temporary, and you can adopt that mindset too. It all starts with a decision. Stop resigning yourself and start asking yourself how you can make the impossible possible. What you just learned is not just a financial strategy, it's the difference between staying stuck in a cycle of scarcity or building the life you've always dreamed of. But here's the truth. If you don't apply this mindset in your life, if you don't change the I can't for the how I can, nothing will change. You will continue to see how others reach their goals while you stay in the same place wondering why success always seems so far away. Now, the decision is in your hands. Are you going to keep what you already know,
or you are going to use this opportunity to start from scratch and change your story forever. Imagine waking up without worrying about debts, without having to check the bank balance with fear. Sounds impossible? Robert Kiyosaki says that it is not. There are 4 steps that can take you from uncertainty to financial wealth, but most people never apply the first. Why? In this video, you are about to discover what no one has told you, and what you will know could change the balance of a game in which perhaps you have been losing your whole life without knowing it. You dare to discover the truth? And let me ask you something. Has it happened to you that no matter how hard you work with money, it's never enough? Or is that feeling of financial insecurity accompanies you every time you pay the bills? If so, you're not alone. Most people live trapped in a financial cycle that seems impossible to break. But what if I told you that that cycle isn't your fault, and if it was designed to keep you there? The most surprising thing is that the solution is not about working more hours. It's about changing how you think and what decisions you make on a daily basis. Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and mentor to millions, discovered principles that transformed his life and shared them for those who are ready to listen. But here's the detail. Knowing these steps is not enough. Most never get past the first why, because facing the truth about money can make you uncomfortable. Not everyone is prepared to see what separates those who achieve financial freedom from those who spend their lives struggling with scarcity. So if you're tired of feeling stuck, if you want clear answers and practical steps to get out of the rat race, stay until the end. The 4th step, the most powerful and the most ignored, has been the deciding factor for those who achieved what many only dream of: financial peace and freedom. You ready to find out? Or do you prefer to continue as you have been until now? Your mind is your most valuable asset, so be extremely selective with the advice you allow to enter it. Just as we install locks on our doors to prevent access by unwanted visitors, we must safeguard our mind to prevent it from being affected by inappropriate messages. We all have a winner and a loser in constant battle. It's about controlling the mind of the loser so that the desire to succeed overcomes the fear of failure. 99% of success is based on your mental attitude and how you face life. The most powerful asset we have is our mind. Financial freedom is not just a matter of money, but an emotional and educational mental process. Wealth is a state of mind. The advice is invest in your mind, and your pockets will fill. Your wealth or poverty is the result of who you are, not what you gain or lose. It's a matter of mentality, philosophy of life, of how we deal with problems and reality. Ultimately, it's a matter of attitude. Money without financial intelligence is lost quickly. In the same way, the lack of money with financial intelligence allows for an earlier or later recovery. Therefore, the crucial thing is to learn how the game works. Many people are poor because they don't know anything about money. In school, they teach us to work for money instead of how to make money work for us. That's the power of money, and the lack of knowledge is what explains why there are so many smart people and poor people in the world. Never say, "I can't afford it. Change it for me. How can I achieve it?" The first invocation brings sadness and distrust, leading to hopelessness and sometimes depression. The second question opens possibilities, emotions, and dreams. I repeat it in all my lectures. There are no limits. The only limits are in your mind. The phrase "can't" transforms strong people into weak people. It makes the brave become cowards. It overshadows cunning and limits that great person that lives inside us. Words are energy, create in reality. That's why we must be very careful with them. It all comes down to studying, experimenting, failing, learning, and trying again without giving up until you find the dream path. If you really want to make money, don't allow yourself to make excuses and strive to find alternatives to achieve it. The number one factor to be rich is to have the determination to want to be rich. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. That's really all you need to know if you want to be rich. Simply dedicate your life to building assets. Financial freedom is about earning more, spending less, and living better. For this, you need to focus on building a set of assets that generate recurring income to cover all expenses, regardless of whether you're working or not. This is a fundamental difference between some people. If you understood it, wealthy people focus on their asset column, while the rest of the people focus on their income column. It's the difference between working to make money and making money work for you. Money won't make you happy if you're unhappy. Although money is important to everything, its absence has a more negative impact below a certain level than its positive impact above that level. Below a certain level, the scarcity of money causes unhappiness, but above a certain level, the presence of money does not increase happiness. Happiness is first and foremost an internal state, related to who you are. From a certain point, it's personal. If not, you are not satisfied with yourself. You will not be more satisfied with more money. You can temporarily satisfy your dissatisfaction, but never structurally. If your goal is not to be satisfied, is to earn money to outdo others, or to prove your value, money will never make you happy. Being disciplined provides a good quality of life. My poor dad thought money made you rich. Rich dad said that financial habits made you rich, and there are two really important financial habits. Firstly, the habit of saving to invest in the future. It doesn't matter how much money you earn, but how much money you keep. To do this, it's essential to be disciplined by setting aside a monthly percentage of income, without excuses. An important difference between the rich and other people is that the rich buy luxuries in the end, using passive income, while the rest of the people buy luxuries first, using active income. So, the ability to save is limited. It's necessary to be a long-distance runner and have a medium and long-term mentality. The second important habit is investment. Money needs to be invested. Knowing that interest generates more interest. That is the magic formula of compound interest. The greater the capital, the greater the basis on which the new returns are calculated. And for this, the best ally is the time factor. The sooner you start, the sooner you will achieve financial freedom, with much less effort. Don't believe what we have been told since we were children, that God wants us to be poor. It's not true. Many of those who are rich today had little or nothing to eat at some point in their lives. That moment of scarcity was the turning point for the success they achieved. Today, realize as long as you feel hungry, your mind will be active looking for solutions to that problem. At that moment, you come into conflict with everything you were programmed with. That's why those who don't want you to be rich try to instill fear and relieve your hunger. That's where the news and recommendations come in, that it's necessary and vital looking for a secure job. The education system was designed to teach you how to be an employee, doctor, lawyer, or specialist, but never about money. The education system was designed to keep you at best in the middle or in poverty. I've met many people who say they can't pay for something, think, I'm made of money. In fact, my father, who got a PhD with a lot of effort, used to say to any request,
Who do you think I am? I can't pay for that. I don't make enough money to buy this or that. And so his words became reality. On the other hand, my rich dad, instead of saying he couldn't pay for something, asked how I could pay for it, how I could pay close attention. Poverty will always be among those who declare poverty, because that's where it begins. Words become reality. A question opens the mind. A statement closes it. So when you say you can't pay for something, the mind closes and you become what you say. Einstein said that imagination is more important than knowledge, but knowledge, power to the poor. Poor people are often selfish. They always complain about their problems, constantly focusing on themselves. No one can, nor should they, contradict their excuses and supposed reasons why they don't succeed. While concentrating on themselves, they forget others. In contrast to the way rich become rich is by ceasing to be selfish and solving the problems of others. Create value. An example is if you care about the cancer that afflicts thousands of people and you could cure that cancer, today you would become a billionaire. The difference between any company or business where money is important is that investing in oneself is not only related to money, it has to do with acquiring knowledge. It involves forming habits and strategies that will improve your quality of life.
Following this line, there are 4 points to get out of the selfishness of poverty and embark on the fascinating world of personal and financial success. Number 1, program your mind visualizing success. If you have ever played sports in your childhood, you were probably asked to imagine yourself lifting the trophy or winning. It sounds familiar to you? The reason why we have all heard this at some point is because the power of vision is strong and effective. Successful entrepreneurs spend time imagining, creating, and exploring within their minds. Thanks to this practice, entrepreneurs become innovators. Using your imagination is a powerful asset that only you have access to. There is no limit to your creativity or ability to create abundance with a solid vision for success. Number 2, start the day early. This does not mean you need to wake up at 3 in the morning with a cup of coffee in the hand. If you normally get up and stand up at 8 a.m., try to get up at 7 a.m. instead. Successful entrepreneurs have been shown to be early risers. Start your day by visualizing your success. What you want to achieve, visualize it. What are your goals? Visualize it. Exercise to increase blood circulation and wake up your mind. Starting the day allows you to organize your thoughts, set your priorities, and organize yourself in a way that leads to success. Number 3, keep things simple. You may think that the rich are born with incredibly complicated lives that make them so effective. This is wrong. In fact, simplicity is the key to wealth and success. Creating simple routines helps avoid the mistake of overloading yourself. If every successful person tried to take on every challenge and exceed their capabilities, you would feel overwhelmed and unable to log anything. Successful people know that by creating boundaries, they become more efficient and effective. And here we come to the 4th step, the step that most ignore, but that separates those who dream of being rich from those who actually achieve it. Keep curiosity alive. If it may sound simple, but ask yourself, when was the last time you invested time in learning something that could change your life? Curiosity is what drives the rich to continue exploring new opportunities, while many settle for what they already know, and that's why they stay where they are. This 4th step not only leads you to ask better questions, it leads you to discover better answers. It's what makes it so that while some see problems, others see opportunities. That's how true winners think. They don't stop, they don't settle, and you're going to keep what you know, or are you going to go out and look for more? Getting rich with debts is easier than spending 40 years working like a donkey to enrich others, but you still don't understand it. You keep rejecting debts while the rich get even richer with the money that you don't even dare to touch. And meanwhile, what are you doing? Killing yourself in a job that barely makes you breathe and settling for the works? How much longer are you going to endure living that way? Or in other words, barely surviving? When I say that I became very rich by taking on debt, most people look at me as if I were crazy. After all, the idea that debts can enrich sounds like financial heresy. True, but that's precisely where the secret lies, which few understand. Most see debts as a burden, something to be avoided at all costs. I see them as tools, powerful weapons in the hands of those who know how to use them. You've noticed that people who are afraid of debts end up trapped in a cycle of stagnation. They work, pay bills, and never have anything left over. Now imagine if you could use other people's money to build your financial freedom. I'm not talking of magic, but of strategy. It's something that works, and I am living proof of it. The great truth is that the problem is not in the debt itself, but in the lack of financial education to use it to your advantage. And that leads me to a simple but crucial question. Do you want to continue seeing debt as a monster, or are you willing to learn how it can change your life? Because the difference between being sunk in debt and getting rich with it is literally the knowledge. Today, I will show you how I transformed debt into one of the greatest sources of my wealth. If you think that is impossible, I invite you to stay with me until the end. What you will discover here can completely change the way you see your money and your future. Have you ever stopped to think that no debt is bad? That's right, there exist debts that work in your favor. We call those good debt.
Imagine, for example, asking for a loan to open a small business that generates a monthly profit. This type of debt is not a peso, but rather an engine that drives your growth. On the other hand, bad debt is that which you acquire to buy something that will not give you any return, such as a new cell phone that you didn't really need. Had you thought? Let's look at a practical example. That friend who uses the credit card to buy things that don't fit into his budget is accumulating bad debt. However, if he used that same card to invest in a financial literacy course that would increase his future income, he would be taking on good debt. It's a simple difference, but essential for those who want to prosper in their finances. Before delving into the details, let me explain something to you. Good debt must be calculated. It's not enough to finance something without knowing if the return is really going to exceed the costs. It's like planting a tree. You know that it will bear fruit, but you need to make sure that the land is good and that you will be able to take care of it. In the world of finance, this translates to planning. And why is this so relevant? Because many people believe that all debt is an enemy, but it's not so. Yes, you learn how to use credit strategically. You can turn what seems like a burden into a real growth opportunity. Now that you understand that debt can be a strategic tool, it's time to put this knowledge into action. But how? You can make sure you use debt wisely and avoid the mistakes that ruin so many people. Here is a practical guide with 5 key steps to take advantage of debt through your favor and build wealth without falling into financial traps. Step 1. Identify if your debt is good or bad. Before getting into debt, the first step is to differentiate between good debt and bad debt. Good debt is that which generates a positive return, such as a loan to invest in a profitable business or in real estate that will pay itself with rent. On the other hand, bad debt is that which only represents an expense without generating income, such as financing a new cell phone or a credit card vacation without a clear payment plan. A simple trick to identify what type of debt you are taking is to ask yourself, will it make me more money in the future, or will it only cost me money? If the borrowed money becomes an asset that puts more money in your pocket, it is good debt. If it only takes money away from you without providing benefits, it is bad debt. Many people get into debt without even questioning whether what they are buying will give them a financial benefit. That's why they end up trapped in endless payments that limit their economic income. Learning to make this distinction is the first step to making smarter financial decisions. Step 2. Calculate the return on investment before getting into debt. Once you determine that your debt is good, the next step is to make sure that it is really profitable. It is not enough to assume that a business, a property, or an investment will generate income. You must calculate it before going into debt. For this, consider 3 key elements: the total cost of debt, capital plus interest, the time it will take to recover the investment, and the expected profit margin. For example, if you're thinking of taking out a loan to open a coffee shop, it is not enough that the idea sounds attractive. You must calculate how many coffees do you need to sell per day to cover fixed costs, pay off debt, and generate a profit. If the numbers don't add up, you could end up with a financial burden that will only bring you stress. The problem for many people is that they take on debt without doing these previous calculations. They believe that because someone else has been successful with an investment, they will too. But without a solid analysis, what seemed to be a good debt, it can become a financial problem. Before you take the plunge, do the numbers and make sure the investment is worth it. Step 3. Is debts to generate passive income? The best way to leverage debt is to use it to create passive income. That is, sources of money that work for you without you having to be constantly involved. A classic example is to buy a property with financing and rent it out so that the rent covers the loan installment, also generating extra income. Another way to do this is with businesses that can scale without requiring your constant presence. Imagine that you take out a loan to open an online store. If you automate processes and delegate operations, the business can continue to generate income even when you're not actively working on it. Here, the key is that the debt helps you create assets, not depend on your time to pay it off.
The mistake many people make is borrowing money for projects that only make you money when you work. You're exchanging time for money and limiting your growth. The goal should be to create assets that work for you even while you sleep. Step 4. Control risks with planning and an emergency fund. Getting into debt without a contingency is a common mistake that can lead to financial ruin. Even if a debt seems to be good, there is always a risk that things will not go as you expect. So before making any financial commitment, it is essential to have an emergency fund and a strategy to minimize risks. A good emergency fund should cover at least 3 to 6 months of your fixed expenses. This will give you wiggle room in case an unforeseen event arises, such as a drop in sales of your business or a prolonged vacancy in the property you bought to rent. Without this financial cushion, good debt can quickly turn into a nightmare if something goes wrong. It is also important to diversify and not bet everything on a single source of income. If you take a loan to invest in a single business and that business fails, you'll be left with debt without a way to pay it off. Planning and diversification are key to making sure you always have a plan B in case things don't go as you expected. Step 5. Reinvest profits and expand your capital without using your own money. The real power of using debt to your advantage is in the concept of financial leverage, which means using borrowed money to accelerate your growth without depending on your own capital. But the secret is not only in taking out a debt strategically, but in reusing the profits generated to continue expanding. For example, if you buy a property with financing and after a few years you sell it with a considerable profit, in a solid plan and risk control, without that, the momentum can turn into a fall. And speaking of risks, you know how to identify and control them before taking the next step. Whenever you're dealing with debt or leverage, the first question that arises is the risks. Look, it's a valid concern, but here's the secret. The risk is not the villain, but the lack of preparation. Before taking any debt, you need to calculate the expected return. It's like crossing a bridge. First, you check that it's firm before taking the first step. In finances, this test is called planning. For example, suppose you're thinking about opening a small coffee shop. Before taking out a loan, you should make a sales projection, costs, and profit margins. Ask yourself, what am I going to earn cover what I will have to pay, and if the influx of customers is lower than I expected? A solid plan protects you from unpleasant surprises. Another crucial point is to have an emergency fund. Think of it as a life vest. If something goes wrong, you will not sink. Many overlook this and end up compromising their entire budget before any unforeseen event. So before taking any risk, set aside at least the equivalent of your fixed expenses. That gives you time to correct the course if something doesn't go as planned. And you know what else? Controlling risks is not just about numbers, it's also a matter of mentality. You can have the best plan in the world, but it's useless if you don't follow it. That's why discipline and financial education go hand in hand. On purpose, have you seen how great investors like Robert Kiyosaki control risks and yet also increase their fortunes? Kiyosaki is a master in turning debts into wealth. One of his most fascinating stories involves real estate. He says that in one of his first transactions, he used borrowed money to buy a property. But here's the difference. They accepted the operation after making sure that the rent would cover the financing installment and thus leave him a margin of profit. The result not only covered the loan, but also created an ongoing source of income. Imagine doing something similar. Suppose you find an apartment in a promising area. Before taking on the debt, you check the average price of rents in that area. If the rent is higher than the mortgage payment, bingo, you're on the right track. The trick is to make the numbers work in your favor. It seems simple, but many people don't do this basic analysis before entering into financing. Kiyosaki always stresses that the borrowed money should not be seen as a debt, but as a lever. He repeated this strategy over and over again to buy real estate, each of which was giving him more financial freedom. And the most interesting thing is that he started small, with affordable properties until he gained confidence and expanded. It's an approach that anyone with the right knowledge can apply. And what do we learn from this? That you don't have to be a millionaire to get started. The key is understanding how to transform debts into income-generating assets. For that, financial education is essential. By the way, have you stopped to think about how much your relationship with money can change acquiring knowledge? Even a good debt can become a problem in someone's hands that lacks financial education, because without knowledge, people don't know how to use the tools they have. It's like giving a Ferrari to someone who's never driven. Financial education is not just about numbers, it's about strategy, making decisions, and above all, a long-term vision. For example, many people are indebted without calculating the interest or the impact it will have on their budget. I have seen people who owe money and don't even know how much they're paying in commissions. This is the basic thing that financial education teaches. You learn to identify opportunities, to avoid cheats, and to plan your steps with confidence. It's like carrying a map in a thick forest. Without it, you get lost. With it, you reach your destination. And it's not only that, financial education also gives you freedom. When you understand how money works, you stop being their reign. You start to make smarter decisions, whether it's to invest, buy, or even to say no to something that isn't worth it. Whoever masters that knowledge plays a completely different game, and the results are noticeable. But here's the question: to what extent are you willing to learn to change your life? The knowledge is available to everyone in books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and even in accessible courses. The question is, you are taking advantage of those opportunities, because without this, it's easy to fall into the mistakes that most people make with debt. Now that you have seen how debt can be a powerful tool in the right hands, the question is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Will you continue to use your credit to finance things that lose value, or are you ready to transform your finances once and for all? The truth is that no one gets rich by chance. It takes strategy, discipline, and above all, financial education. You have thought about where you could be in a year.
If you start today, think about the opportunities around you, waiting for someone who knows how to take advantage of them. You can build your wealth, create sources of income, and live more freely. It all starts with the first step, taking control of your financial decisions. Financial success is not an event, it's a process that requires patience, education, and a strong sense of determination. In my entrepreneurial career, the most important skill I learned was self-control. The lack of this quality is the main reason entrepreneurs fail. Mastering yourself means learning to control fear, emotions, doubts, body, mind, and soul. If you can learn to control these things, if you can learn to control yourself, you, yourself, hold the world in your hands. The Path to Success by Robert Kiyosaki. When it comes to money, our emotions often get the better of us. We know what we need to do to change our situation, and yet we do what we want to do, and yet we do what we want to do is almost always take the safest option in everything we do. That safe option is generally having a job that you don't enjoy, work where the pay is very low, but at least in your head you have a cash income. But if that were the case, it would have been easy for my wife and me to give in. For example, if we had given space to our fears of entrepreneurship and opted for the security disguised as a job, if we had done that, I guarantee you that we would not be where we are today. We would probably have given up on our dreams and settled with something much smaller. My wife and I faced this challenge in our early years as a couple. There were days when we were over $1 million in debt, but we didn't think about giving up. And if you know the difference between rich and poor in growing our business, the big difference is how they deal with fear, the importance of emotional intelligence. We all make big decisions every day. Life puts us in difficulty after difficulty, and we have to decide how to respond. When this happens, are you simply reacting to the situation, or are you making a conscious decision? When you react, you make a decision based on your emotions or instincts. The emotional part of your brain is in charge. But when you pause to think about your alternatives and possible consequences and do everything to make a decision based on facts, you are in control. As I said before, when emotions grow, reason decreases. If you don't overcome fear, you will never succeed. Being human means having emotions. We all feel fear, sadness, anger, love, hate, disappointment,
joy, and much more. No one decides how to feel, we simply feel everything naturally. The only thing you can decide is how to react to these emotions. When it comes to risking money, we all feel fear, even the most successful ones. The difference is in how we deal with that fear. For many, fear translates into ideas of playing it safe without taking too many risks. But for others, this fear of losing money makes them act intelligently and motivates them to learn to control the same fear. Different emotions, different ideas. In short, the rich are more mature when it comes to controlling their fears. They are not reckless when it comes to taking risks. They propose to work on your emotional intelligence to see more clearly the path to follow, even in the face of uncertainty and terror. If you want to be rich, you must also learn to develop your emotional intelligence and overcome fear. Master this diagram, and you will be rich. This is the first tool you'll need. In the following diagram, each edge represents a different type of mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional intelligence. Mental intelligence refers to what you know. If you learned a lot of things in school, if you grew up thinking of yourself as a brilliant person, if you're someone who people consider intelligent in the traditional sense of the word, then you're especially good at that kind of intelligence. On the right, you'll find physical intelligence. Professional athletes excel with intelligence of this kind, as evidenced by their ability to transport the body beyond the limits of the majority. At the bottom is spiritual intelligence. If mental and physical intelligence depend on individual performance, spiritual intelligence will depend on the sacrifice of each one. Those with a strong spiritual intelligence will have a strong sense of unity. On the left side, you'll find emotional intelligence. Mastering this intelligence is the key to true success. If you can master all 4 types of intelligence, you'll have a prosperous and happy life. It's that simple. Constantly educate yourself, as if you know the next financial crisis is coming. I've always said that I love financial crises. When I tell someone with low financial intelligence that I'm educating myself for an upcoming financial crisis, the reactions are very negative. The reason it bothers them so much is because they don't understand everything I learned from Rich Dad and that I explained to everyone. They think I wish evil on others, or I just go against it for no reason. However, I get excited because I know that financial crises are the best time to make money. When everyone's fears increase, prices fall, and that's when smart people like us come into action. 2, that's why you need to take advantage of complacency times in the market to learn, take action in tough times, and prepare your mind for the next coming crash. Fear never goes away, but how you deal with that fear depends completely on you, and you will be rich. Failure is often seen as a negative thing. Most people fear failure, but it's not your fault. The education system is built to discourage failure. If you take a risk and you get a bad grade, they make you think you're sabotaging and destroying your future. Conformity is the rule. Divergent thinking is frowned upon. But the reality is that no one can succeed without taking risks, and if you take risks, naturally you will fail. When you look at the list of people who succeed today, or remembered for how successful they are, you wouldn't think they were losers, but that's what each of them was. Before they were victors, they failed and were even called losers. They understood that the key to success is to take risks and fail before you succeed. If you're going to do something worthwhile in this world, it means that at some point you're going to fail. And if you're going to do something great in this world, it means you're going to fail big. But after learning, if you try one more time, I guarantee that financial success and wealth will come to you in a much greater amount than you planned. Wealth is measured not by the amount of money you have, but by the amount of time you can survive without it. Robert Kiyosaki. If this video has inspired you and taught you something valuable, then you should share it with the people you appreciate the most so that they can also experience the transformation in their lives, differentiate, and make the world a better place. Also, if this is your first time on the channel, we invite you to subscribe and join a community of people seeking personal and professional growth. See you in the next video. Thank you so much, friend, for listening. Leave your ideas in the comments section so our community can grow by learning together. That's all for now. Until the next audiobook,